It is just after midnight in a police station in Perugia, Italy. Amanda Knox, 20 years old, has been sitting in this room for hours. She has no lawyer. She has no interpreter who can properly bridge the gap between her halting Italian and the rapid-fire questions coming at her from multiple officers. She is exhausted. She is terrified. And she is about to sign a statement, written in a language she barely understands, that will paint her as a murderer. That single document will cost her 4 years behind bars, 8 years in legal limbo, and a reputation that may never fully recover. The question is how it ever got that far. 6 weeks. That is how long Amanda Knox has been in Italy when her world collapses. She is a 20-year-old linguistics student from Seattle, bright and curious, studying abroad at the University for Foreigners in Perugia. She shares a modest apartment on a hillside with 3 other young women, including 21-year-old British exchange student Meredith Kircher. Knox has a new boyfriend, a 23-year-old Italian computer engineering student named Raffaele Sollecito. Life in Perugia is simple, romantic, full of promise. But on the evening of November 1st, 2007, Meredith Kircher is sexually assaulted and stabbed to death in her own bedroom. Her body is found the next day behind a locked door. And within 72 hours, investigators begin building a theory that will defy the physical evidence, ignore a clear suspect, and fixate instead on the young American woman who cannot stop nervously smiling in front of the cameras. The investigation moves fast. Too fast. Police find signs of a break-in at the apartment, a shattered window, Meredith's room in disarray. They recover DNA, fingerprints, shoe prints. Almost immediately, all of it points to one man, Rudy Guade, a 20-year-old drifter from the Ivory Coast with a history of break-ins. His DNA is found inside Meredith's body. His bloody handprint is on her pillowcase. His shoe prints track through her blood toward the front door. The physical evidence against Guade is overwhelming and singular. But the lead prosecutor, Giuliano Mignini, has a different vision. He reportedly theorizes that Meredith's murder is the result of a group sex game gone wrong, involving Knox, Sollecito, and Guade together. It is a theory with no physical basis, but it is sensational, and it sticks. On November the 5th, police bring Knox in for questioning. What follows is, according to Knox and later court review, an interrogation that stretches through the night, lasting roughly 14 hours with no formal legal representation. Officers allegedly yell at her, cuff the back of her head, and tell her she is lying when she cannot account for every minute of the evening. Knox speaks conversational Italian, the kind you pick up in 6 weeks abroad, enough to order coffee and ask for directions. She does not speak the Italian of criminal interrogation, of legal jeopardy, of precise statements that will be entered into evidence. There is reportedly no adequate interpreter present for significant portions of the questioning. Officers allegedly suggest names to her, push scenarios, tell her to imagine what might have happened. By the early morning hours, Knox is shaking and confused. She signs a statement suggesting she was present in the apartment and that Patrick Lumumba, her boss at a local bar, may have been involved. The statement is written in Italian. Knox will later say she did not fully understand what she signed. Patrick Lumumba, it turns out, has an airtight alibi. He is completely innocent, but the damage from that coerced statement is already done. The media erupts. Knox is dubbed Foxy Knoxy, a nickname pulled from an old social media profile that has nothing to do with the crime. Tabloids across Europe and America paint her as a cold, hypersexual sociopath. Her cartwheels in the police station, a nervous habit she later explains as a stretch during endless hours of waiting, become evidence of her callousness. Every smile, every kiss with Solicito outside the apartment, every photo from her social media is weaponized. The prosecution does not need strong forensic evidence. They have a narrative, and the world is watching. In December 2009, an Italian court convicts both Knox and Solicito. Knox receives 26 years. Solicito receives 25. Meanwhile, Rudy Gueda, the man whose DNA saturates the crime scene, has already been convicted separately through an abbreviated trial and receives a reduced sentence of 16 years, later lowered further. The disparity is staggering. The man with all the physical evidence linking him to the murder gets the lightest sentence. The two with virtually none get the heaviest. But the forensic case is about to crumble. On appeal, the court appoints independent forensic experts to re-examine the two key pieces of DNA evidence used against Knox and Solicito: a kitchen knife allegedly carrying Meredith's DNA on the blade and Knox's on the handle, and a bra clasp allegedly carrying Solicito's DNA. The independent experts deliver a devastating report. The knife they find shows levels of DNA so low they fall below the threshold for reliable testing. The bra clasp had sat uncollected at the crime scene for 47 days before being retrieved, handled without proper gloves, and subjected to what the experts call gross contamination. The two pillars of the physical case are not just weak, they are scientifically meaningless. On October 3, 2011, the appeals court overturns the convictions. Amanda Knox, after 4 years in an Italian prison, walks free. She flies home to Seattle that same night, stepping off the plane into a wall of cameras, visibly shattered. But Italy's legal system is not finished. The acquittal is itself appealed, and in 2014, a new court reinstates the convictions in absentia. Knox, back in America, faces the surreal possibility of being dragged back to prison for a crime the evidence says she did not commit. It takes until March 2015 for Italy's Supreme Court of Cassation to end it. The court definitively acquits both Amanda Knox and Raffaele Solicito, citing a fundamental absence of evidence and noting stunning flaws in the investigation. The written opinion is blunt. There is no reliable evidence placing either of them at the scene of the crime. 8 years after Meredith Kircher's murder, the legal nightmare is over. Knox is free. Solicito is free. And Meredith Kircher's family is left with a grief compounded by a judicial process that spent years chasing the wrong people. Rudy Gueda, the only person whose guilt was supported by physical evidence, is released from prison in 2021 after serving just 13 years. Amanda Knox's case is not just a story about one wrongful conviction. It is a blueprint for how they happen. A vulnerable suspect, a language barrier exploited in an interrogation room, a prosecutor married to a theory, forensic evidence never properly challenged until it was almost too late, and a media machine that turned a young woman into a monster before a single verdict was read. So let me ask you this. If you were 20 years old, exhausted, alone in a foreign country, and police told you to imagine what happened, what would you say? Think about that. If this case kept you listening, subscribe, hit that notification bell, because the next story is one you have never heard, and it is just as unsettling.